Hello and welcome everyone. I am beyond excited to invite you in for CFS Plus. It's Global Fashion Agenda's online event on sustainable fashion. I'm Eva Kruse. I'm going to be your host for the next 2 days here from the Copenhagen Concert Hall. Usually we fill up this space with around 1,500 people from all over the world, industry leaders, politicians, and different voices that are affecting how our industry is developing on sustainability. Because of COVID, we had to cancel Copenhagen Fashion Summit, but in its replacement, we've created this new digital beast called CFS Plus. And since we've all become so digitally savvy during the crisis, I'm sure that both you and many, many more are able to join us for this event this year. The next 2 days will be jam-packed with some of the most exciting stories and content pieces, discussing how our beloved industry of fashion can become a prosperous business that works within the planetary boundaries and in harmony with people and planet. CFS Plus is delivered under the headline, Redesigning Value. But let me underline one thing before we kick it off. There will only be a green lining to the moment we have in time if we are able to reconcile our aspirations for short-term prosperity with a lens of long-term actions that will create an industry that works in balance with people and planet. I've been looking so forward to this moment, and we've been working really hard to get to a place to deliver this CFS Plus. I bid you all welcome.
So what exactly is CFS Plus? Let's start with the basics. This is Global Fashion Agenda. We're a nonprofit organization on a mission to mobilize the fashion industry to take bold and urgent action on sustainability. We convene political decision makers, top industry leaders, organizations, and more on sustainability transformation. And for over a decade, we've been behind the world's leading event for all of this, Copenhagen Fashion Summit. This year, we introduced something new. Copenhagen Fashion Summit Plus, or CFS Plus. CFS Plus, a highly engaging and entertaining digital content platform that will go live the 12th and 13th of October, and it's free of charge for everyone to join. CFS Originals, bringing to life stories and formats that will take you behind the scenes of fashion and the most innovative minds. We will take you into the heart of the solutions that will drive our industry forward in balance with people and the planet. GFA Explains will take some of the most complex topics and turn them into digestible information, facts, and numbers. CFS Live is 2 to 3 hours of exciting case studies, live discussions, workshops, and roundtables with industry leaders, experts, and big thinkers. CFS The Show, a 1-hour live show that ties it all together, featuring industry executives, leading creatives, and important voices every day of the event. But we also bring you the possibility to go beyond watching with CFS Innovation Forum, connecting you with the sustainable innovations revolutionizing the fashion system across each step of the supply chain. Matchmaking gives representatives from fashion brands and retailers the opportunity for tailored one-on-one meetings with solution providers covering the entire value chain, from innovative materials to responsible packaging solutions. CFS Design Studio is curated especially for creative directors and designers. The Digital Design Studio will showcase exciting solutions to boost sustainability. All of this on the 12th and 13th of October. The only thing you have to do is register in advance. We're excited to bring you all the new features and invite you to join us in making sustainability fashion's first priority.
My very first guest here at CFS Plus is no one less than Her Royal Highness, the Crown Princess Mary of Denmark, who is the patron of Global Fashion Agenda, and actually the only speaker that has been speaking as a keynote speaker at every single Copenhagen Fashion Summit since 2009. She's a strong advocate for sustainability and a big humanitarian, and with a strong focus, especially also on women across the world. Your Royal Highness, welcome, and thank you so much for joining me here in now the almost empty concert house, where we usually have all of our international friends and voices from all over the world.
It is quite a contrast.
It is.
And, you know, it reflects the times we are living in right now. I mean, the worrying times. And it is sad, because it's so nice to meet people from all corners of the globe, to be able to hear everyone's different reflections and great ideas and innovations. But we'll continue to do that. You've planned a great 2 days.
We have. Some of them are going to be brought to life in pre-produced pieces where we come even closer, I would say, because we're at their home, so closer to them for longer times. And then we are also going to deliver like live Zoom setup panels where some of those important discussions and debates are going to happen. So yeah, it's going to be 2 exciting days still. Yeah. It's definitely been a difficult year. I mean, COVID obviously has impacted everybody, but not least the fashion industry, with lockdowns and stores were closed, and, you know, big impacts on the supply chain. But how has it been for you and your life?
Yeah, like everyone, our life has been turned on its head. I mean, we're living and experiencing a global pandemic, the worst health crisis in 100 years. We've seen how societies all around the world have been closed down from one day to the next, where our freedom of movement, which we cherish so deeply, has been so incredibly restricted. And also, of course, the tragedy of losing loved ones.
The year of COVID-19 has, of course, also impacted the supply chain and some of the sort of weakest links of fashion, namely for the workers. And I know that you've been traveling and you've seen, you know, not this year, but previous years also, you know, met people in the supply chain and seen the conditions they're working on. So how has that affected your view on things this year, thinking of them?
Well, COVID has had broad-reaching impact and consequences in all corners of the globe and in all areas of our societies. And when crisis strikes, the most poor and vulnerable are disproportionately affected. Yeah. And we know the fashion industry is a huge employer. And the majority of those employed are women. And you're right, I traveled to Bangladesh and I had the opportunity to visit a factory and some workers, talk to some of the workers there. And if we take Bangladesh as an example, I mean, that's a country that is very dependent on the textile industry. 80% of their export is through textile and fashion. So, and they put 4 million people are employed, and 85% of them are women. Yeah. And we already know today that 1 million garment workers have been laid off. Now, the factory that I visited, maybe it's not completely representative of all the factories in Bangladesh, but we know that a job and financial independence gives enormous security and hope for the future. I spoke with a number of women there and heard about what it means from them to be unemployed. And the contrast of having a job to not having a job is stark indeed. These women have become financially independent. They are able to support their family and also their local communities. They have a voice in their families and in their communities because they have financial independence. They also are able to invest in their children, their health, their education. So I can imagine for these women that have lost their job because of reduced production and factory closures, that they're in a very dire situation.
Thank you.
Fashion got too fast, too much, too quick. And really, there's an opportunity for us to slow things down. And that's what I think needs to change. A slower, more thoughtful industry that's about product, that's about craft, that's about people.
We need to move towards radical equality. We can talk about technological innovation all we like, but the one innovation we've never tried is to treat each other as equals.
The fashion industry needs to develop new metrics to measure success.
I think what really needs to change is the need to understand the impact of decisions across the entire supply chain and taking full responsibility for it.
We need to move from the optimization of the current system to a transformation to a totally new system. And as Bill McDonald often says, being less bad is simply not good enough. We have to do better.
I think we need to close the inequality gap that currently exists within the fashion industry.
We need for more actors across the global fashion system. Publications, retailers, influencers or fashion weeks to make sustainability mandatory.
We have to take responsibility. We have to stop talking and take action.
One of the fundamentals that need to change is that the industry needs to become much more consumer-centric.
Fashion needs to hold itself to a higher purpose that involves social impact, that involves correcting regressive systems that benefited only a few, not the many.
Giving back more than what we take. Imagine if we could take this approach at the industry level. We could literally be part of the solution in fighting climate change and restoring nature. We could change the path of our collective future.
I'm excited to present to you this first CFS Originals pre-produced content piece called Real Talk. As the name indicates, the format is about no bullshit, and hopefully it's also somewhat provocative. We have a tendency in fashion and in many industries to surround ourselves with people who are alike. But actually, to disrupt our thinking and open up our minds, we need to sometimes listen to people of a different opinion. This is what the format Real Talk is about. We have given the stage and the microphone to a number of non-corporate voices, different perspectives that can hopefully help us disrupt our thinking. The first Real Talker is Karina Emmerich. She is an artist and a designer based in New York. Karina, the floor is yours.
Indigenous people make up 4% of the population of the world, yet we are protecting 80% of the world's biodiversity. This is not a heroic statistic. It is loaded and violent. When I was initially contacted to share a message as a part of this summit, I was taken aback and wondered what role I am filling in the summit's grasp for inclusivity. But as someone who has been passed down the responsibility to be a protector of our lands, this is an opportunity for me to step forward and call for accountability. We've created a white supremacist-centered industry built on the backs of people who have very few rights, very poor working conditions, and unfair pay. Our excessive demand to buy things cheap comes at a human cost. The name of the summit was changed from Redesigning Growth to Redesigning Value, because growth is an inherently unsustainable practice. So how do we create genuine value? It's not simply about products anymore, it's about the stories and the people behind them. As designers, we are storytellers. Our words and actions hold power, and we have to create a standard of value for every creation, every person, every word, and every action that we take. For me, getting down to the root of my presence as a being and what and how I contribute to this world is my form of radical sustainability. But my commitment does not stop there. I believe in the sustainable representation of Indigenous people in all arenas. As Indigenous people, we are stewards of the land, and we have a responsibility to uphold that commitment. While the fashion industry has now started adopting the concept of circularity in response to the demonstrative effects of industry and colonization, credit needs to be placed where credit is due. Circularity is an inherently indigenous concept that has existed since time immemorial. It is not a new idea, and it certainly should not be our next buzzword. In an industry that is currently more focused on the commodification of diversity rather than giving up your seat at the table, I am here to demand that we start listening to each other with respect and gratitude. Inclusivity is not a trend, it is an action. In the authentic global sustainability movement, we are innately aware of the need to diversify the spaces we occupy, to take actionable steps to amplify the voices of Black and Brown people, the original stewards of the land, in order to work towards restorative and regenerative solutions. Now is the time for us to start dismantling the systems of oppression built up around us, and to start working together to create radical change within this industry. This is the only way to move forward and to truly create lasting value.
There would be no fashion industry if it wasn't for beautifully designed products. And I would actually also argue that there would be no sustainable fashion industry if it didn't come down to beautiful products. Do I love it? Will I look good in it? Is it sustainably made? Those things are connected. This is why I'm super excited to present to you this next piece of content that we've created. It's called Designer Challenge. We have chosen 3 of the most exciting designers of our time and challenged them to produce a sustainable product. I am very proud to present the first Designer Challenge with the awesome New York-based designer, Heron Preston.
This is like filming radio for the first time. Right, I didn't know what to do with the technology, so I was like, oh, can you do an Air Force One? You know, but like you can obviously do so much more. My name is Heron Preston. I'm a designer, I DJ, I love to play music, creative director. It's just all around vibes. So cool, so cool. He had like this piece of printout paper in the box when I opened it up, and it said something like, I made a video for you, and it had a big QR code. I open my camera, the link pops up, I hit the link, it takes me straight to YouTube, and a 3-minute video starts playing of Cornelius saying, "Hey Heron!" "Hi Heron!" Oh my God, this kid is next level. The secondhand first philosophy, which was all about upcycling and, you know, recovering what would normally be wasted and giving it a second life. It's all with a kind of a mission of never sending, you know, waste to landfills by the year 2030. And it also introduces a whole bunch of new people to the playing field that haven't necessarily been involved in fashion before. Kind of just goes back to me being in like high school and being friends with like the skaters, but then like the nerds, but then like the cowboys who drove like the 4-wheelers, you know, and I was that skater kid. But I wanted to kind of just be friends with like everyone. And then as I started to get older, I started figuring out ways to kind of like see parallels in all of that. So kind of having like Daniel as like the footwear like designer and like historian, and then like Cornelius's technology, and then like my vision and like, you know, my kind of like passion to push my brand to the forefront of like culture, and, you know, having these breakthroughs kind of like, I felt like that was like the perfect like triangle of like, you know, strength. Triangles are really strong forms, you know? We were like, all right, let's do a launch together. Let's introduce a sneaker to the world. I did a Skype Zoom with Cornelius. How many have you guys built so far?
We only have one right now.
Just how he spoke to me, I felt like I was speaking to like Steve Jobs.
It's kind of version 1 and version 2 changed a lot.
More or less minor changes.
Dude, like the next fucking like genius that the world will know. Like I knew I was speaking to a genius, but I was like, man, the world is gonna fucking know this genius pretty soon. Like I wanna be involved. Conversation after conversation. He just started taking me through his studio and really started introducing me to his process and his philosophy of getting a 3D printed shoe on the foot of every person around the world. And then when that shoe may break down or they no longer want it, they can send it back, break down that material, and then use that material to reprint another shoe and send it back to you. So you technically only own one pair of shoes. And then the cost, you know, really, really cheap because of the materials. And so I was just so impressed with just his whole thinking and how future he was thinking. I just knew that like, he would be like the perfect partner to help me write the next chapter in my journey in like sustainability and like really kind of exploring and pushing the boundaries of like what's possible in fashion. I hope kind of people get so inspired from these philosophies and these new ideas that they go off and apply that same energy on their own projects. You know, keep that same energy, keep that same energy on your projects as well. Because if it's just the energy for us, it doesn't necessarily achieve that goal, which is like truly making the world a better place. Can't do it by yourself. This is the type of work that needs to be done in order to inspire this type of thinking with people, positive change.
A Copenhagen Fashion Summit classic is the one-on-one conversation and interview on stage. But given the times we're in, we couldn't bring people together. So we had to think of a new way of bringing some of these exciting voices into a conversation. So this is how Samantha Patterson, the CEO of Red Carpet Green Dress, met with Omoyemi Akaili, who is the founder of Lagos Fashion Week, for an in-depth conversation at the Conduit in London. It's a perfect place for two such trailblazing female leaders for a conversation about privilege, value, social justice, and connecting with the African continent. You can watch a highlight of their in-depth conversation here, but also a full link that you can find on our website.
Yemi, we finally get to
I
meet.
know, right?
I can't believe we've not crossed paths before. This makes no sense.
It's a really great meeting you.
You too. Yeah. I'm so excited. I've always felt that something was missing in terms of I didn't feel like I was doing better for more than myself. I wanted to be part of something that did better for the environment, for communities. And when I happened into sustainable fashion, because it was an accident, I found that that's what I needed that was missing, being part of something that looked at global communities, that looked at the earth, that looked at the impact beyond making something that was beautiful.
How do we ensure that we create that balance, that mindful balance between the people, the processes, and the environment to get people to understand that, it's not always about the bottom line. It's not always about, how much money can we make? Sometimes, we have to ask ourselves or tell ourselves, when is enough? And I don't really think it's about not making money. It's about making sure that every hand profits.
And what you've built with Lagos Fashion Week, but also then your agency, which kind of, like you said, is like an incubator for brands and to help them scale themselves up.
The last 3 or 4 years, 4.5 years, it's sort of changed to how can we rebuild our own ecosystem to be able to support our own designers, to be able to ensure there's infrastructure that can, help them grow, scale up, and, provide everything that they hopefully need. That's who we are. Tell me about you. I mean, so glamorous. Sounds, when you hear red carpet, green dress, I'm like, girl.
The call for us is just redefining how sustainability is seen and educating people to be aware that it's a culturally dynamic conversation. Sustainability in the United Kingdom is not the same as sustainability in Ghana. And actually, FYI, the Ghanaian sustainability could potentially teach the Western sustainability a great deal. There's an exchange happening. But right now it does feel like it's a certain part of the world saying this is how to be sustainable.
So it's quite interesting as well that in Nigeria and so many parts of Africa, the way the designers work, it's naturally adapted or suited. It's what you call slow fashion anyway, you know, with the craftsmanship and the communities and all. But we realized that it was important for us to be deliberate about teaching and impacting the next generations.
When we're talking about the presence of Black people, people of colour, is staggeringly low compared to their white counterparts. So our presence in this industry is we're underrepresented in this industry. If you take a fashion brand that's offering an internship, but it's an unpaid internship, that means that anybody who doesn't have the disposable income or is not from a socioeconomic group where they can afford to do an internship that's unpaid means that they will automatically be declined that opportunity or won't be able to apply for that opportunity because they can't support themselves. They just can't. So then you start unpacking how wealth is distributed within the industry or how wealth is distributed within society, and you'll start seeing very strange and striking similarities.
How effective is, you know, every company now, every major, every other company is, you know, creating or employing a diversity chief and inclusivity, this, all of that, you know, I call it the scramble and petition for getting a person of color on board. Grab one quick and, you know, let the person be the face of, you know, so how effective is that? Do you really think it's going to change anything? Do they have the power, or is just, you know, another act of tokenism?
Yes, there was an element where people are reacting and saying, well, we need to appoint somebody, and I almost feel like that's just the wrong way to go about this. You don't actually need to do this token knee-jerk reaction. Actually do the deep work of auditing your company, researching your company, interviewing your employees. Do something that's a bit more thought through versus reactionary.
Do you think, is it possible that some people are really completely oblivious to what's that they're in positions of privilege? Like, do you really think that they're not aware that, wow, okay, I'm here today because of XYZ?
I think that being oblivious is a privilege.
Girl.
I think that being able to be oblivious to something is a privilege. To be able to say, oh, I didn't realise that there were no other... Oh my goodness, I didn't realise I was the only... That's a privilege because in our
in this whole store, we only have 3 Black
my
brands.
Goodness, what a shocker. Did you know that? To be able to have that reaction is a privilege because for many of us, we are acutely aware that we are the only one. We are acutely aware because we are the only one, and we carry such a responsibility to do not only our job well, but to represent others who are not in that room with us. So it's a privilege to be oblivious in 2020. It really is.
Where we're coming from, fashion really can save lives. Fashion can change lives. You know, coming from a country where, you know, the poverty line is people live below less than $1 a day. You know, coming from a country where the unemployment rate is probably in double digits, you know, getting people to understand that, you know, when you see the product, that's not just where the work starts. You have to pause for a minute to figure out, you know, how the process was.
We're wasting at such an astronomical scale. And I think that whole idea of what we value as often only being the finished product and everything that goes into that almost suddenly becomes valueless once the product's finished. And it's this whole idea that, well, waste is only waste if you waste it.
So value doesn't end with the wearer, with the first, you know, first person who comes in contact with it. You know, it's that product that can, for as long as it's in existence, really, either in its pure state or in the state in which it becomes repurposed or recycled, it would always bring value to the wearer. We recently had a project called Woven Threads as part of Lagos Fashion Week. And actually the same designer, This Is Us, came up with a video. What does it mean to design like an African? It means to be able to design and create for a very long time.
Right.
And that's what value means. Creating something
that
out of nothing, but can last for as long as possible.
I've been into fashion since I was 12 years old, and a girl kissed me because I dressed nicely. I realized that was the most important communication for me.
I like working in fashion because it brings together the creative, the analytic, and a lot of different people.
I love beautiful clothes and the craft of fashion.
I
I'm passionate about working in fashion because we all wear clothes every single day. And for me, it's about connecting the dots between the clothes we wear and Earth's communities.
Used in the right hands, in the right way, I believe that fashion can be a powerful tool for positive change.
I love working with fashion because creativity is woven into the DNA. You see it every season on the catwalk, and that spirit of innovation is exactly what our planet needs in this turnaround decade.
I believe that the fashion industry is a very big platform through which we can change the future for millions of producers.
I think fashion is all about people, and always about people.
I'm passionate about the fashion industry because it is that spark that can ignite change in the world. The industry employs some 300 million people. Its impact can be felt in countries and continents like Africa, where women and young people do not have jobs.
I am proud to work in the fashion industry because we help change how people view themselves and how they communicate to the outside world.
Don't you just love new? A new day, a newborn baby, or a brand new shirt? Fashion as an industry has always centered itself around a never-ending desire for newness. It's common across some of the industry's biggest brands to release as much as 52 new collections every year, which is evidence of a deeply ingrained logic towards growth as the only viable method of defining success. The fashion industry is already one of the largest and most resource-intensive industries in the world, and global garment production is expected to continue to increase its volume at a pace where sustainability improvements are not catching up. So how can the fashion industry redesign its value proposition to benefit a triple bottom line of both people, planet, and profit? In 2005, the average consumer kept their clothes twice as long as we do today. But over the last 20 years, the price of clothes has decreased by 30%, and we buy 60% more. The result is that for every 5 garments produced, 3 end up as garbage within a year. We believe fashion can do better, and we must find new opportunities for both sustainability and a more prosperous business. It's time for a new way of thinking. So here are 3 ideas to get the creative juices flowing. Idea number 1, redesign the purpose of your company. How do you create value? Are there other ways to measure value? Can you slow down the pace of production without losing important stakeholders? Idea number 2, boost for demand. Wouldn't it make sense to stop making clothes that will never be sold at full price or never be sold at all? Is it possible to reduce the number of fashion seasons and drops? Can you use new technology to match supply and demand better? Idea number 3, try on a new business model. Why sell your clothes only once if you could sell the same shirt 5 times? Why not make clothes of excellent quality that can be resold, remade, or leased? And why not build more long-lasting customer and supply chain relationships? Why not ask yourself these questions? Because if you can find a way to redesign value, it will not only reflect positively on your business, but on the fashion industry as a whole. Now that would be new and exciting.
I believe fashion is our global language, meaning whoever you are, wherever you're from, you can communicate about your values based on what you're wearing.
I love fashion because it's art and it's creative and beautiful, and I want to be a part of creating fashion that is not only beautiful and creative, but also political and empowering to everyone involved with its making.
What's so exciting about working in fashion right now is that this particular cultural moment, it's all about the creative use of resources.
I think fashion is a practical art that everyone can be a part of, which means that everyone can be a part of the change too.
Fashion is powerful. It sits at this cool intersection of art, design, utility, and psychology, and it really serves as a reflection of our society.
Fashion makes me feel alive. It is my armor, my confidant, and my one true love. I don't see myself pursuing anything outside of fashion. Sustainable and ethical fashion is the only way to follow that passion of mine.
Because it can be so much magic. It can be so empowering and so powerful as a vehicle for change. So yeah, I think that's it.
The topical headline for CFS Plus is redesigning value, and within that a discussion also about growth and prosperity. My next guest has posed a question: why can't fashion respect the non-negotiable planetary boundaries? I'm very pleased to introduce Professor Kate Fletcher. Hi, Kate. Good to see you.
Hi, Eva. Yes, really delighted to be here.
So in the fall, before the COVID hit us, you launched a report called Earth Logic. So can you unfold a little bit what Earth Logic is all about?
Absolutely. So what Earth Logic is, it's a radical invitation to business leaders, to governance, to designers, to the media, to citizens, to put Earth first and to transform the fashion sector. We think, Matilda, Tam and I, my co-conspirator and long-time collaborator who wrote Earth Logic, we think that it's urgent that we begin to deal with things within the fashion sector differently. And this is because of the scale of the problem that we face. And actually also because the primary obstacle to delivering change at scale and at pace is growth logic, is the logic of economic growth. We have to work at the level of the system and the paradigm. So this means not only working with materials or supply chain issues, but also asking the questions that are about the goal and the purpose of the system that we're working in. So what Matilda and I propose within Earth Logic is that we substitute growth logic, which up to this point has been the purpose of the paradigm that we're working in, with Earth Logic instead, and that we put Earth and thriving of all its peoples first.
Fashion industry, for instance, is a big driver for growth and development in countries, for something that also, lifts humans out of poverty and so on. So how do we balance that with this notion of degrowing or producing less stuff, or creating less of that traditional growth?
If you look in ecological systems, what you see that an organism will grow within its niche until it's fulfilled the size of its niche, and then it stops growing, and then it switches into a new system, a system of maintenance of its size. It doesn't try to grow any further. And so one of the things that we see is that we have to begin to understand that there's lots of different strategies and stages within different economies that we need to sustain at the same time.
I just keep thinking, how do we put that into real life? We have companies who either have different owners that wants to be prosperous, or we have shareholders investing in the bigger companies that also pursue sort of a growth margin. We have countries who are trying to lift their population out of poverty by growing, in manufacturing, for instance, or so on. How do we tell all these people to sort of halt, or enough is enough?
Well, plainly, it's not the most easy conversation to begin, but it's one that we need to pursue. We need to talk frankly and respectfully, and we need to bring in lots of different people into the conversation. I think one of the things that happens often is that we just talk to people sort of a bit like us, people who reflect the same perspective, and it's obviously vital that we don't just do that, and that we begin to develop or uncover or find old methods and ideas around thinking about what success could be like if it wasn't measured in growth format. Perhaps we can even think about how corporations can maybe define a living purpose for business.
So what would be your advice to CEOs and politicians listening in? What should they implement rather today than tomorrow?
I think a shift from a system which is not so much concerned with accumulation as towards the maintenance of what we already have provide loads of really exciting business opportunities.
Thank you so much. Thank you for taking time.
All right, no worries.
Redesigning value is to create new purpose.
Innovation. Purpose.
A moral upgrade.
Impact.
Compassion. Better.
Capitalism.
Dignity.
Redesigning value means respectful practices that drive progress end to end for all.
I think about redesigning value as something that has no sell-by date and something that is never off-season, out of season, and is always timeless.
The first word that comes to mind in redesigning value is holistic. We need value to encompass not just profits, losses, products, but also impacts on people and the planet.
Hope. Workers. Solidarity.
A new beginning.
Inclusion. I think redesigning value is also redistribution of value following the principles of equity.
People and planet working together as an ecosystem.
In order for our industry to make the changes it needs, we need to reimagine the entire value chain. And this is going to take deep systemic changes in everything we do.
Change. Sustainable development.
Ethics and aesthetics.
For me, it's not about redesigning value, it's about bringing the values that I learned growing up in Uruguay in a remote place and applying those values of long-term view and sustainability into the work I do.
Longevity.
Circularity.
Change.
New perspectives.
Reimagine, reinvent, and rebalance.
Often in life, a straight line from A to B is the most efficient and desirable route. But when it comes to fashion, this is not necessarily true. At least not when it comes to the life of a piece of clothing. Let's say that A is a crisp new white shirt, and B is the landfill where it will eventually end up. Then it's better if the shirt's way there is as long and winding as possible. Or even better, that A doesn't lead to B at all, but ends up circling back to A again. Right now, up to $500 billion of value is lost every year because used clothes are not recycled, resold, or repurposed properly. Instead, large amounts of new resources are used to produce clothes that are often only used for a short period of time before they're turned into garbage and lost forever. This repeated movement of our planet's resources from A to B pollutes and degrades our natural environment and its ecosystems. So how do we introduce a larger degree of circularity in the fashion industry? As it is now in the current linear economy, fashion is not only harming the environment, but profit is also spilling from the gaps in the life cycle of a piece of clothing. The best possible solution would be to close the loop entirely by eliminating the need for virgin fibers and circulate fashion products back into the loop as raw materials for new products. Actually, research shows that shifting to a circular economy could unlock $4.5 trillion in global economic growth, a number that makes your head spin. We're not quite there yet, but important strides are being taken to empower consumers and enable them to dispose of their used clothes in a more sustainable fashion. Global materials science company Avery Dennison has come up with a clever concept that is referred to as a reverse care label. Using a smartphone, consumers can scan the reverse care label on a piece of clothing and immediately identify the easiest and best way to resell, reuse, or responsibly dispose of the garment. This ensures that the valuable textile resources in their garments are reused and sent back to the beginning of the supply chain. Most consumers are already familiar with the small label inside our clothes that helps us wash at the right temperature or stops us from washing clothes that shouldn't be washed at all. So by adding an extra interactive piece of information to this well-known place, Avery Dennison enables the industry to make recycling information accessible at that crucial moment, when we're ready to say goodbye to our no longer so crisp or white shirt. The circle is closed, and our beloved shirt can return as a new shirt, ready for another life cycle.
Circularity will take the fashion industry all the way. Without circularity, there is no foundation for sustainability.
I think circularity is the future.
It does have its limitations, and I think it's not the cure of fast fashion.
It can go far, however, we need to focus on changing people's mindsets.
I think circularity is the most practical solution we have. It shouldn't be easier to make a new polyester t-shirt by mining petroleum.
Circularity is going to take us to rely less in virgin material, and I think that's one of the dreams that we cannot wait to really fulfill. I think circularity with a social agenda can take us very far.
I think that circularity is incredibly influential, but I think that it can put too much of an emphasis on end of life and not optimizing the life of all the products that we make.
Circularity is going to get us part of the way, but not all of the way.
In our Designer Challenge mini-series, I'm excited to present yet another shooting star in fashion, Ujjayi Breathing. We have challenged him to produce a sustainable product, and we've been following his work process along the way. Enjoy.
I've been responsible for making a lot of product that's maybe gone into landfills, or that's contributed to microplastics that's ended up in the ocean. And I don't want to continue to do that, and I don't want my friends and my colleagues to continue to do that. Hi, I'm Ujjayi Breathing, and you're watching Designer Challenge. I like to be minimal, and I like to be impactful with the least amount of elements, time, pieces, products possible. That's how I approach everything. I have my own line called Him, and Him was a concept that I created back in college before I knew how to design. I didn't know anything. I didn't even know how to make the logo. For me, it's the way I go about designing clothing, which is different than it was even a year ago. Right now, society, mankind needs to be really responsible about what we're doing right now. We see what's happening in terms of social justice in the States and across the entire planet. We see the way that we're destroying the environment at an alarming pace. It's like, okay, I'm gonna make something that I would ordinarily make that I think is great, but I don't wanna hurt anybody doing it. I don't wanna hurt any animals. I don't wanna hurt our water. And so it was making a tracksuit that was made out of a completely recycled ocean plastic. So for me, working so long in sportswear, and I continue to make a lot of sportswear, I kind of, went back to figure out okay, what is the environmental impact of what I've been doing all these years? Particularly in sports where you work with a lot of polyester and nylon, but they're extremely harmful to the environment. I met Cyril, who kind of heads up Parley, and we were talking just kind of about design in general and where they wanted to go and what I was working on, and it was kind of a natural process to get to a point where we're we should do something together. And so, amongst other things, I wanted to really work with them after hearing about what they're doing and how they're making fabrics and how the stuff that they're doing with Adidas in terms of recycled microplastics into the actual footwear that they're doing and across all categories. I thought that was just so amazing and remarkable. So I asked them humbly, like, would you want to do this with me? I'd be, ecstatic to do it. And they were super down to do it. So that's how we kind of started this process. Taking plastic from the ocean and putting it into a garment that ordinarily would be causing a lot of waste is not even a drop in the pan, but it's a step in the right direction theoretically. I try to have fun with every process of work should be fun, because life is boring if it's not. I think I would love to say that a lot of people that I work with are my friends first and foremost, and then we're colleagues secondary. Maybe we can scale that process into a way where we can use that in concerts, we can use that in your big box retailers where you're buying stuff that's more affordable than the more niche garments that we're making out of this stuff. But that's the general approach that I have to design in this life, I guess. People that have disposable income and that can afford to make these decisions right now, I encourage them to do it. I try to do it myself. But we need to be able to have that be accessible for all of us worldwide. That's kind of just one aspect of a general responsibility that we all need to undertake and that I've tried my best to do in other aspects of life. So we just generally need to do better as a race of humans. We're just really making a mess.
I think it's important for companies and for individuals in position of being a supervisor to ask themselves a very simple question when they visit the factories that the people who make their clothing work at. You have to ask yourself, how would I feel working there?
As consumers, we need to become more curious and demanding and ask questions like, who made my clothes and under what conditions? Where were they made? Where are the materials sourced from? Can I find more information online?
We need much more transparency along the whole value chain.
We need mandatory transparency as a starting point. Utter visibility throughout the supply chain to encourage a generation that will scrutinize and looking for accountability.
The COVID crisis has shown us how fragile the livelihoods of those who make our clothes are, and how vulnerable they are and dependent on the system.
By keeping the commitment, more transparency, that's all.
I think we need to consider that human hands have touched every piece of clothing that we're wearing. And would any of us really want any of those people to be exploited or harmed in any way as a result of producing something for our own enjoyment?
Principally identifying that people working in this industry have rights, human rights, and industry have obligations, and the governments have also the duty of protect and prevent violations of labor rights.
Only one way, respect. Respect them, respect people who make clothes for us. I think they do not only need to be mindful, they need respect.
In our series of Real Talks, where we grant the microphone to people who come from a different background and can share different perspectives, the next Real Talk speaker is Nazarine Sheik. She's born in Nepal without knowing her identity or even date of birth, and she ended up in child slavery in the garment industry. She's also a story about empowerment, and I think she will capture your heart. Listen to what she has to say.
I come from an undocumented village near the India and Nepal border, where girls are the unacknowledged. From the moment of the birth, the society tells that rural girl children that her existence is insignificant. If one's own birth does not matter, then the condition in which she lives, works, strives, suffers, and dies also do not matter. At an early age, I came to believe as girls, we are simply commodities that are bought and traded. As such, we are not human beings. Growing up, I witnessed incomprehensible atrocities against children and women. My life seemed destined for the same oppressive path. I escaped my village for the capital city of Kathmandu, where I immediately was subjected to child slave labor for the textile industry. I was working 12 to 15 hours per day in a sweatshop as a child laborer. I ate, slept, and toiled in a sweatshop workstation, often picking sewing threads out of my food and being too afraid to look out of the window. At the end of each day, I would collapse onto the large bundle of clothes and daydream where they would end up, who would wear them. Some of you wearing those clothes right now. Like all girls in my village, I was not allowed to go to school. My older sister was forced into marriage by age 12, and I was next in line. But through a serendipitous encounter with a kind stranger who provided the only education I ever received, starting with how to read and write, I was able to seize my own destiny. By escaping the sweatshop and forced marriage, around the age of 16, I managed to secure a loan and founded local women's handicrafts, and later Empowerment Collective on a vision to end sweatshop, forced labor, poverty, all with the hope to inspire a movement for ethical fashion in Nepal's capital, Kathmandu. I survived the grueling environment and trauma that came with being a child laborer, and to think there are still over 150 million child laborers working right now pains me more than ever you will know. You must help us stop child labor and sweatshop. Start by asking yourself where your clothes come from. If you work in the fashion industry and you own a business, know your supply chain. We are all humans and we need to look out for each other.
I'm excited that everyone is slowing down and rethinking how they operate.
So I'm really excited about sustainability and circularity concepts becoming the top priority for customers, for brands, and for the policy makers.
A simpler way of life, or a revolution into a simpler way of life.
I'm excited about these supply chains that are disrupted, the people that are in positions of power actually having an opportunity to change things.
The opportunity to start fresh and disrupt the fashion system.
I'm most excited to see how the fashion industry is going to change in terms of slowing down things, in terms of protecting its garment workers from another economic shock such as COVID. And I'm most excited about the Fashion Week calendars that have been redesigned now.
My last guest here at CFS Plus is Bill Foudy. He leads sourcing and development for Target's own brands with a focus on delivering responsible and sustainable products. And I'm particularly curious about how a huge corporation like Target has steered through the COVID crisis and everything else happening in Minneapolis. Hi, Bill. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too, Eva.
And it's great to see you. And obviously I'm super curious how you have coped with all of this and how Target, as such a big player, has coped with the crisis of the COVID. So can we maybe start there?
For us, is our approach from day one has been a people-first approach. And we literally, sat down in conference rooms to have those conversations about what will be our approach. Is it people? Is it business? What does that look like? And we said, no, it's people. And that's who we are as a company. And so a lot of our focus out of the gates was on ensuring that our team members in the stores were safe, in our distribution centers, and then obviously we were creating the safest shopping environment that we could. We have focused on increasing our minimum wage, so we moved that up to $15 an hour back in July. So yeah, I'd say people first, really kind of focusing on the values and purpose of Target has been our approach to this pandemic.
Has this changed your mindset as a leader? Has the time shifted the way you look at things?
Look at the challenges in some lesser developed countries and the need for our business to operate in an ethical and responsible way, I think has become more apparent now than ever. And so it's literally how we operate. Like I said, it's built into the values and the purpose of this company. But we are more encouraged now to double down our efforts to work collaboratively, to engage with other brands, with other retailers, with other third parties and stakeholders to continue to push forward these efforts. So I'd say the thing that's changed is that it's brought things more to the forefront and accelerated the need for the work that's going on.
Anything that you're optimistic about? I'm
optimistic about the things that we've learned, the lessons that we've learned throughout 2020, which is, certainly not been an enjoyable one for many reasons. I'm excited about the goals we have in place from a carbon footprint standpoint. So we announced about a year ago our goal, our commitment to lower our carbon footprint as a total company by 30% by 2030, based on a 2017 benchmark or baseline. But even more than that, we took it to a next level, right? So we're looking at scope 1 and scope 2, but we also went to scope 3, which encourage others to do. And so that's getting into our supply chain. And so we've also got a public commitment out there that we will
And how's that going?
It's going well. And that commitment is that we'll have 80% of our suppliers by spend also with science-based targets out over the next few years. And so it's going well. We're certainly out of the gates. I can tell you that we have not we've not reached that goal yet, but I'm excited about the things that we've put in place. I'm excited about following through on those.
Thank you so much, Bill.
Absolutely.
This is all I had for you on this first day of CFS Originals. But before we segue into all the live panels, I think we should take a moment to breathe, to think and reflect on what you just saw. Nike is presenting a mindful moment.
Hey everyone, I'm Brandon Collinsworth, Nike Master Trainer. I'm excited to be a part of your CFS Plus journey, and I've designed the next 10 minutes for us to take a collective breath and recharge together. Most of us have a lot on our mind, sustained over a long period of time. Concerns about our planet, our climate, our health, our community, and our families, and this affects your mental health. The beauty about today's convening is the opportunity to bring us together to focus on collective action. There's power in the collective. All of us here from around the world sharing the same intention to build the future we want for all. Thank you for joining me. Now let's move into the practice. So first and foremost, I want you to just stand up. I want you to connect with the ground, really feel into your body. We're gonna move some energy. We're gonna use our breath to really tap into our intention, and not only that, tap into the moment. It's in the present moment where the real magic happens. So first off, let's go ahead and just Really root in your standing position. Hands are down, everything's loose. This first movement pattern that we're gonna infuse in today's practice is called Tai Chi Bouncing. So you're just gonna bounce, and you see my fingers, my whole entire body is just moving. What we're doing is moving energy. We're gonna be doing this for 1 minute. So I'm lifting up onto my toes and letting my heels hit the ground. When my heels hit the ground, everything reverberates. This is the opportunity to tune back in and really give yourself that care that we so often forget at times. And next move, you're gonna twist with a little pivot. And this is just waking up the spine, allowing your body and your mind to open up a little bit. And you know what they say, stagnant body, stagnant mind. So as we move here, we're waking up the mind to be receptive to all the magic that you're diving into during this conference. Beautiful. Next one, third one, we call these kneading. So all you're gonna do is start to pat the body, waking up every part of the body, giving every part of the body a little bit of love. You can use the open part of your hand, you can use your fists, moving all the static energy from sitting down, waking up everything. This is your own personal cup of espresso. Or for those who don't drink coffee, yerba mate. So this is also about being curious, exploring. Can you move a little different? Can you move outside of your current movement box and wake things up? Even the head. It's all about energy and then shaking it out. Beautiful. All right. I really want you to root down, root into the heels, super powerful position. Fingers and palms are open towards the front of your room. Shoulder blades pulling down, chest is up and proud, long spine. So what I'm about to teach you right now is the fundamental breath technique for yoga. You lock this in, not only are you gonna go deeper into your yoga practice, but it's a breath technique you can do anytime, anywhere, to automatically bring you back into a state of centeredness and peace. So, first technique, first step to breathing properly. I want you to take your left hand, place the 2 fingers on the bottom of your throat. This is called Ujjayi Breathing. So a lot of people, when they breathe, they sniff, especially in yoga. That's cold air, that doesn't work. But when you breathe through this technique called Ujjayi, this pranayama technique, you pull the air deeper into the throat and it sounds like this. Now, it may feel a little uncomfortable at first, so give it a try a couple times. Pull the air down, and if you're doing it right, you'll actually feel the air flowing over the trachea. Sounds just like this. Second step to breathing properly, to diving into this yoga breath, is I want you to place your left hand on your chest, your right hand on your stomach, all right? Inhaling from above to below, exhaling from below to above. So when you breathe in, chest rises, stomach rises. When you exhale, stomach drops, chest drops. So give that a couple tries. Big inhale. Big exhale. One more time, big inhale. And big exhale. Beautiful. The third fundamental to breathing properly is embodied breathing, wrapping your breath around your movement. So hands are back to the sides where we started. When I say inhale, hands up, you're gonna start your inhale first. So it looks like this. Inhale up. Exhale down. So my breath wraps the movement. Let's try that again. Inhale up. Exhale down. My breath does not end until after my movement stops. So here we go. Let's do a few of these together. Inhale up. Exhale down. Taking it a little deeper. Inhale up. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale all the way up to the sky. Exhale all the way down, sweep the ground. Inhale up. One more. Exhale down. Inhale all the way up. Stay up, lifting through your toes, staying with your breath for 3, 2, 1. Heels come down. Exhale, hands to heart center. Close your eyes, tune in, and just feel through awareness. Tune into what you're feeling. Noticing, observing. And it's here that I want you to set an intention. Set an intention for yourself. Set an intention for this conference. Set an intention for what you want to see change in the world. And breathe into that. Breathe into that space. Breathe into that power. Breathe into that vision. Eyes are still closed. I want you to take your left hand, place it over your chest, right hand on your belly. These are two powerful symbolic centers. The right hand sitting over the belly button is symbolic to willpower, also known as Manipura chakra. This is the seat of power. And the left hand sitting over the heart, Anahata, the seat of compassion. So when we merge the two, our power with our heart and our heart with our power, the real transformation happens. So breathing into these two centers with your intention, with your breath, and really feeling in to what it is you want to bring to life, what it is you intend to bring to life. Two more deep breaths. How do you want to shift this world forward? What impact do you want to make? What legacy do you want to leave? From here, slowly begin to open the eyes. Hands come down to your sides. Welcome back. Thank you for practicing with me. This is day 1. Set a powerful intention and remember to take care of yourself. Health in the body, peace in the spirit, love in the heart. I'm Nike Master Trainer Brandon Collinsworth. Namaste.
I'm excited to kick off now the next part of CFS Plus, the live panels, workshops, and case studies that you can listen into and take part in. This first live panel is delivered by the Fashion Pact. It's a coalition that was actually inaugurated here on this stage at Copenhagen Fashion Summit in 2019 by caring CEO François-Henri Pinault. He has rallied the industry that now represents 1/3 of the world's shoes and apparel behind an ambition to change biodiversity, oceans, and climate. A big roar to hear their first one-year status report.